Triple M Grill Team.
I'm brain damaged. Ian Roberts on Channel 7's Sunday night program. People, this is a game changer without a shadow of a doubt. Some people sometimes trivialise the shoulder charge, or when people get knocked out, and should the shoulder charge be banned? Should Sonny Bill Williams be looking at 4 weeks on the sideline? Well, you only had to watch Ian Roberts last night to get the energy to have a good look in the mirror and for a bit of self-assessment where you sit on this one. It was terrifying. Showing, there was an American doctor on there that's doing the studies on what concussion does to the brain. And it was absolutely terrifying, And I got to say, I'm sitting there with my oldest son, and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, "You sure you want to play this game? You sure you want to play contact sport?" It was. We interviewed Peter Fitzsimons yesterday on the Sunday show on Triple M, and he was telling us some of the things that we're going to lead in, and he was talking particularly about an old coach of his he had at Manly Rugby, Tizza, and. He said that great guy, but as he got a lot older, he said he'd become irritated, become quite angry, would have outbursts, and he developed early dementia and passed away. Well, his family actually sent his brain to America to get assessed, and he had this terrible disorder, which is basically a concussion disorder, which is affecting a lot of the American footballers, and his brain had actually shrunk. What happens with this condition, what happens when a concussion happens is proteins attach itself to the brain and basically rots the brain. And we're seeing a lot of American footballers. And watching the show last night and watching Ian Roberts, I could have been watching 1,000 former players that I've run into. I'm running into far too many former players, former hard men who are approaching 60, and when I shake their hand now, there's a brittleness in their hands and there's a blankness in their eyes. This was an American doctor talking about last year. George Smith, you might remember, in the Bledisloe Cup, got completely knocked out, didn't know where he was, and then returned to the game 5 minutes later.
I watched that film of George Smith and just thinking about how many people failed him at that moment. I mean, the medical staff not holding him out, the coaches not seeing that he couldn't walk on his own and not saying, "I'm not putting him back in." His teammates, I don't know if anybody stepped up and said, "Hey, he's no good, you can't put him back on the field." But, somebody whose brain is actually functioning needs to stand up for him.
So what is the solution? I say the bleeding obvious. If you are clearly concussed, then it is a mandatory 4-week stand down. No ifs, no buts, no excuses, no appeals. But continuing business as usual is not an option, for it's now clear that the damage that can be done by ignoring concussion is terrifying.
Well, not only in the 80s and 90s did people ignore concussions, during the era that MGU played and I played, that it was actually, you were given the thumbs up if you returned to the field to play. You were given the thumbs up.
Badge of honour. Yeah, you weren't game to say, "Look, I can't go back out there." It's and you're right, Matty. Game changer. When I saw that it was Ian Roberts, who, in my opinion, was one of the toughest players I ever played with. To see him in that interview last night was quite disturbing.
Well, this is Ian Roberts. He's talking about basically what concussion did to him and the fears he had when he would go through days where he would basically forget things.
I'd driven to the game, but my dad drove me home, and we had to come back the next day and look for my car. I could not remember where I parked the car. I'd lost the whole day. It's those experiences that I'm worried about, because there's 3 different times in my memory that I lost the whole day. I've quite literally lost the whole day.
And I keep mentioning, when I played back in my day, I was 107, 8 kilos. The average rugby league player these days, average wingers, halfbacks, 5'8", front rows, 108 kilograms.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things I want to talk to you blokes about in a moment. Firstly, though, do you think what the NRL are doing now, Matty, is the right thing?
Yeah,
is that all they can do at the moment, or a start?
There's a lot more they can do. I mean, Peter Fitzsimons, I'm telling you right now, when coaches and officials hear 4 weeks on the sideline, they'll say, "Oh, no. And firstly, what they do there, they say, "Oh, what about the roster? We're going to run out of players." It's always results driven. Okay, that's what we're dictated by at the moment, rather than the welfare of the player. At the moment, we've come a long way. At the moment, we're seeing guys get knocked out, they go off, they get assessed. I'm pretty dubious about some of the guys, by the way, returning to the field on the weekend. If you stand and you stumble and you collapse, it's hard to believe they go off and you're okay.
Tim Manor,
two things.
Well,
Tim
I
Manor
don't want to label a team so much because at the end of the day, because I'm not a medical practitioner, and obviously these good doctors go in and say, okay, he's okay. I mean, these guys have got qualifications. But there was another one, and I can't say this, I watched William Hopewadi get knocked yesterday, and William, early in the game, stood there and he staggered around, and it was clear that William didn't know where he was. And the game actually got held up for a second, and I could see the trainer trying to sort of usher him towards the sidelines. William, and as you do when you're concussed, and as you do when there is so much peer group pressure around you trying to impress, you say, no, I'm okay. No, I'm okay. We know we've made it when someone actually goes, no, you are not okay, and walk on the field and pull him off.
Exactly right. Now, something that alarmed me yesterday, boys, when I heard on last night's program, this is an American doctor talking about people that have played the game for an extended period of time.
You've played more than 10 years of football. Right now, over 95% have shown positive for the disease.
A disease known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Essentially kind of causes your brain to rot, like memory problems, impulse control issues, depression, and that eventually you may get dementia if you live long enough.
Okay, he's obviously talking about the NFL. He's talking about...
But more to the point...
head contact sports.
No, he's talking body contact sports.
Yeah. You guys both played 26 years, 12 years in first grade for you, Matty, 15 for you, MG. You could easily be one of the 95%. How does that sit with you boys this morning, right now?
It's not are we brain damaged, it's to what extent. Peter Fitzsimons said yesterday on the show, on the Sunday show on Triple M, he said, listen, he said, I went over there and said to the American doctor, well, obviously I'm okay. He said, I must have shirked the load because I've written numerous amounts of books. And he goes, Peter, you're not listening. You are brain damaged. It's to what extent and what extent you'll find out when you get into your 60s. And I'm watching the show last night, and I remember getting knocked out for the first time when I was 6 years old, and getting knocked out and constantly getting knocked out through at one point during my first grade career, I got knocked out about 4 or 5 consecutive weeks in a row. And
do you lose days?
No, I never lost days as such, but I would finish a game and the next day have no idea what happened in the game. All I know is we either won or we lost, but had no idea really of what went on in the match.
MG?
Yeah, that happened to me a lot. I'd say in my 15 years in grade footy, probably 10 times I was, had that deja vu feeling of, I've been here before. It's the first thing that happens when you get kind of KO'd. You go, I've been here before. When you get knocked out fully, when you've fallen asleep on the field, that's when you've lost whole track of the whole day.
What about your wives? Do your wives say to you, I told you that already? Do you have those day-to-day moments where you actually, it's not just tiredness because of this job, it's actually, you know what, Matty, I've told you this already, I need you to do that, and you're like,
don't worry, it's handy for an excuse sometimes, like it's Valentine's Day, wedding anniversaries.
I'm trying to be sensible here.
No, they have. Yeah, she has, Meeks has to me. She goes, I told you that 2 hours ago. What? I don't know. And this is this is pretty scary, to be honest. Now I'm in mid-40s. If you think in 10 years' time we might be having some serious side effects because of the sport we love, that worries me.
Yeah. Look, I've run into, I know a couple of blokes I played with and against. One bloke who, mate, you only have to put him on he could hop on a merry-go-round and be violently sick for a day. And the other one most recently came up to me within a minute period and said the same thing 3 times.
Jeez. Well, Ian Roberts was on the show last night, one of the toughest guys you played with and against, MG. Ian Roberts will join us for a chat about this exclusively at 8:20 this morning on the Grill Team.
The Triple M Grill